My name is Sarah Rosenfeld Johnson, and I would like to take this opportunity to share some very exciting information with you, something that has happened in the field of speech therapy, which is what my professional bend is. There has been a renewed, or actually a starting of an interest in looking at how muscle skills impact upon speech clarity. Many years ago, when I was starting out in speech therapy, I graduated with what I felt was all of the information and all of the knowledge that I would need in order to work with my clients in both speech and language, knowing that the two go together, speech and language, which is actually the name of our profession. However, when I got into my first job, when I started to work, despite the fact that I had graduated from very impressive universities, Ithaca College on the undergraduate level, Columbia University on the graduate level, when I started working with my first group of clients in a public school, I found that there was something missing. And what was missing was the ability to improve speech clarity in addition to increasing sentence length. For so many of my clients during that first year who represented children in special education as well as children in typical classrooms, my assessments at the beginning of the year revealed a certain level of language skill and a certain level of speech clarity skill. But by the end of the year, when I redid my assessments, what I found out was that although I had made some significant gains in teaching them to express their ideas more fully or to use more words in a phrase, what I didn't do was I did not improve their ability to use the oral structures, their mouth, their abdominal grating, the muscles, the tongue, the lips, the jaw, to use these new word systems. So for example, at the beginning of the year, they might have been able to say more or that or want, and at the end of the year, they were able to use longer phrases, but they were less intelligible in that they would say, I want more, or da-da-da-da, or give me that. The problem, again, was that the muscle skill had not improved along with the sentence length. And as a result of that, I became very frustrated, which is part of my particular personality. If I can't do something successful, I'm going to try to figure out how to do it better. And that is, for me, when the field of oral motor or muscle-based therapy really became a necessity rather than an option. Working with children with R distortions and S distortions for over a year is a long period of time. Many of us will work with a child with an R distortion for 4 and 5 years and make no progress. And I think the difference between the therapy that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today and what we have been using traditionally is a traditional articulation therapy relies on visual and auditory stimuli. If we're going to speak to a client, we want them to say a certain word, we say, look at me, look at this object, say what I say. But for many of our clients, that is not enough. That visual and auditory input is not enough. What seems to be missing is tactile. And the importance of tactile is really something that we see in ourselves every day when we speak. Let's pretend that you are in a very noisy, crowded room, and there are people talking and lots of noise and lots going on. If you are speaking to somebody, you know that what you are saying is clear or intelligible. You know it not because of how it sounds to you, because you can't hear it. Not because of how it looks to you, because you don't have a mirror in front of you telling you that you're doing the right thing or saying the right sound. It is because of how it feels within your body. It's called tactile kinesthetic feedback. And oral motor muscle-based therapy is nothing more than adding the tactile component to speech. So this therapy that we're going to talk about in a few moments is a type of therapy that is not going to replace anything you presently do. For me and for so many therapists in this country and internationally, this type of therapy has been the piece of the pie that has been missing in our education. We are going to continue giving auditory and visual information, but what we are going to add is tactile. And as I mentioned before, tactile information for many of our clients is the key to learning. Let me give you an example of how this therapy is used with a child or an adult with apraxia, because the type of therapy we're talking about is not only going to be used with our clients with muscle deficit, as in weakness. For example, this will be used with children with autism or cerebral palsy or Down syndrome or any of the low tone deficits. It'll also be used for adults with Parkinson's disease, post-CVA, disorders like, or progressive disorders like myasthenia gravis. So what we're looking at here is an adjunct type of therapy, a tactile approach to working with these clients. The other group that it is so beneficial for are the individuals who have not responded to traditional articulation therapy. Those clients who don't appear to have muscle weakness, who don't appear to have excessive motor planning disorders, but for some reason they cannot get that S sound, they cannot get that R sound. Oral motor is designed to work with those clients as well. And as we learn more about this field, it becomes very obvious as to why many of our clients aren't responding to traditional therapy. Here's an example that I'd like to show you about one client that I worked with a number of years ago who in one session was able to show me the benefits of using the tactile approach for apraxia. Child's name is Scott. And Scott was a child who, when I first met him at 3 years of age, would say, Now for him, that was a complete sentence. His apraxia, or inability to volitionally plan for speech production, was related to production levels, not to cognitive skills. So he wanted to say, "Hi, my name is Scott, it's nice to meet you, won't you come and talk to me?" But what he said was a sequence of vowels. We describe this as the inability to transition from one movement to the next. I also feel that not only is it a motor planning component, but that motor planning needs tactile information to sequence. When we think about children with apraxia then, we frequently think of them as having just muscle memory kinds of difficulties or sequencing. But in my experience over the last 30 years using these techniques and other oral motor techniques is that they also have a combination of muscle weakness that goes along with the apraxia. With this child Scott then, the first thing that I had to look at was his ability to volitionally produce airflow. And in apraxia, frequently we see this very choppy So I started him on a horn hierarchy. In this approach to oral motor therapy, we don't just go to a store and pick up a bunch of horns and say, okay, well, I think I'll do this one today or that one tomorrow. What we do is we have developed a sequence or a hierarchy of horns that work on abdominal grading, where airflow is originated. It works on movement of the velum, so that the velum can reposition to get the air orally or nasally. The horns are also working on jaw strength, and lip position and strength, and tongue position and strength. So when we are working on a program of horns, not only are we working on improving the ability to coordinate airflow, we're also working on position. So for example, here was an assignment for Scott. He was on horn number 7 in our sequence of horns out of the 14, and that horn looked like this. When I work with children with apraxia, after they blow the horn, we then remove it and produce the speech sound that would be produced at that same position in the mouth. For example, for this horn, it would be ah, ah. His homework was to produce the sound